Hey, hello everybody. Welcome to live Q&A. This is the live Q&A every week for the global community of adult survivors of complex trauma living with CPTSD symptoms. This week's topic is anger and rage. This is week 2 of anger and talking about navigating our feelings and how our feelings show up when we're in recovery for CPTSD or we're healing from complex trauma. So welcome if this is your first time. And if you're here, you've been here every week for 3 or 4 years, then welcome to you as well. Welcome especially to Roku TV viewers. Thank you so much for being here. Everybody on YouTube, if you're here live, there's a chat box over here somewhere and you can enter your questions and I'll do my very best to answer them. But as I always say every single week, trigger warning, these discussions are triggering for anyone who has lived with childhood maltreatment. Your health is the top priority. Videos on YouTube are never, ever substitute for medical care, professional health care, mental health care. I really want you to receive the care you deserve because you're worth it. And that means stepping away from the chat box or stepping away from the hashtag on Twitter if you're over tweeting using the hashtag no more shame. We've all been sort of hanging out on that hashtag and showing up here every week for over 4 years now. And the chats are a means of peer support. They're never professional care. Every single video on this channel is from a coaching perspective, and I always encourage you and urge you to receive the professional medical care and mental health care that you deserve. Please reach out to a licensed professional, a qualified professional who is hopefully, and we would prefer them to be trauma informed, meaning that we always keep in, whenever we are looking at any symptoms that we're experiencing, we look at not only the symptom that we're dealing with right now, whether it be addiction, eating disorder, numbing, stuffing, avoiding, life sucks. We look at that, and then we also always keep in mind what happened a long time ago, or maybe not so long ago, that's causing the feelings of numbing, stuffing, avoiding, perhaps addiction, eating disorder, etc. This is always about that. So that's a trauma-informed perspective. We always keep both in mind. We're never only focused on the symptoms. We're never only focused on the previous trauma. We look at them both together and we come up with a program that works. We use different modalities that help us heal. So that's a trauma-informed perspective. That's what you're going to get on this channel. And these are all from just a coaching and lived experience perspective. I simply share what's helped me on my 17, 18-year healing journey from complex trauma, and I answer your questions. That's pretty much it. And if you want to get plugged into a safe group that is free, then by all means, email Lisa at cptsdfoundation.org. And Lisa will get back to you as soon as possible, usually within the same day, if not 24 to 48 hours, and ask you a few questions and get you plugged into the group that would best support you on your recovery journey, because we're all different. So what helps me in my recovery journey might not help you. And I'm glad that you're here supporting one another. Thank you for being here. There is a whole bunch of hotline information right over here in the chat box. And for those of you who are on a replay, I'm going to give you some information for hotline information. If you are a survivor of rape, abuse, or incest, please reach out to our friends over at RAINN, the Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network, and that's RAINN.org. You can reach them at 1-800-656-HOPE. And I always forget the numbers. I should just write them down. 1-800-656-4673. That's our friends over at RAINN if you're a survivor of rape, abuse, or incest. If you are currently living with thoughts of suicide, I want you to reach out to our friends at the Suicide Prevention Hotline, and that's at suicidepreventionhotline.org. And that's 1-800-733-TALK, T-A-L-K, I believe is the correct number. But please know that you're not alone. There are plenty of people that are here to help you. Not here on this YouTube channel. I'm not set up for crisis support here on the YouTube channel. Not in the comments section after the videos go live or they're done being live and they go into the archive, and not even during the live chats. I'm just not set up for that. But if you prefer to text and you don't want to call anybody, you can text our friends at the crisis chat line, and you can find them at crisis text line. crisistextline.org, or you can simply text the word START, S-T-A-R-T, to 741-741, and there will be someone that comes online, asks you a couple questions, asks you what's going on, how they can best support you, and they will refer you to someone locally. They will find someone locally that can hopefully help you through whatever it is that you're going through. And of course, always dial 911 if you're in immediate crisis. So thank you for being here. We're going to discuss the topics of anger and rage. I went through a very brief sort of framework or workflow the last couple of weeks on feelings when they show up. I will go ahead and show you that briefly again, and then I will go into some of the questions that I was unable to answer last week due to time constraints, and I will go back and I will answer them. And then I will answer your questions this week, the ones that you're already sending in, which, by the way, I want to thank Ashton Smith, Carol Hammonds. If someone could tag them, I want to answer their questions from last week. And then I think I ended on Katie Lee's question from last week when she was talking about when she's at work. I'm going to answer holistic recovery, 20, 20 more hours to go. And by the way, I received over 50 emails from you guys saying, yes, part 2 of anger, Athena, part 2 of anger. Yes, please do that, because anger is a big topic. It's a hot button topic with our community. And last week, just to recap, we discussed why it is that certain survivors that experienced their trauma, certain types of trauma, sexual trauma, severe emotional abuse, physical abuse, neglect, etc., and that trauma started in the earlier years from birth to like 7 or 8 years old, and how accessing their anger is something that is almost impossible to do in adulthood. And so they're really concerned about that. And so we talked about that last week. We're going to talk again a little bit about that this week. 58 emails, by the way. I forgot. It was like over 50, but I just remembered it was exactly 58. And so thank you to John Harvey. Thank you to Joey. And thank you to Holistic Recovery, Ashton Smith, Deborah Herendine, Katie Lee, Gary Pfeiffer. Hi, Gary. Hi, Dana. Thank you to all you guys who are already sending in your questions. And I'm going to try to get to every single one of them because I don't want to go into a week 3 if I don't have to. Because I know we have so many other feelings on like the feeling spectrum and like how they show up in complex trauma recovery. So, but I'll just do the best I can and follow your guys' lead. First and foremost, I'm going to go to just a very simple framework / workflow on how feelings show up. And let's see. This is week 2 of anger and rage. Here we go. I hope you guys can see that. Will you let me know if you can see that? Oh, by the way, thanks for giving this video a thumbs up, and a very, very, very special thank you to all of our volunteers who do amazing research for CPTSDfoundation.org. Very special thank you to Lisa, who's vetting everybody for groups. A very special thank you to Dawn and Matt, who are moderating and making sure that your questions get answered every single week. Thanks to Kalisha, who runs our community over on Instagram at Survivor Community. And thanks to Jody B, who tweets out amazing information every day, all day over on Twitter, encouraging everyone. You can follow her at One Last Kick over on Twitter. And then there are just so many of you, too many to mention, actually. And but I do appreciate every single one of you guys that volunteer here, that do research, that moderate in the groups, that show up, that send encouraging emails and audios and videos and send me voice messages and poems and artwork and teddy bears and gifts. And I'm still making my way through a stack of amazing, beautiful cards and letters that I received for Christmas and New Year's. Some of them were very emotional and caused me to feel very, very emotional. And I'm having a hard time making my way to the bottom of the stack. So if you've sent something and I haven't sent you a thank you, I just want you to know that I've probably received it, but I haven't sent you a thank you yet because I haven't made it through the whole entire stack. So, but when I do make it to yours, I will send you a thank you personally. And I'm so grateful for each of you guys. So thank you. I'm going to go to the, up here, we're on week 3 of feelings. The feelings that we need to navigate through during CPTSD recovery, and we're in week 2 of anger. The first week, back on the YouTube channel, Harriet, if you could pop up the link in the YouTube card to the video in week 1, which was fear and unsafety. And then Harriet, if you could also pop up the link to the second video we did, which was last week, which was anger, week 1, part 1. Of anger and rage. So you guys, this is sort of just a framework or a workflow for navigating my feelings and recovery. This is just what has been working for me. And I'm observing that this is how things show up for me and how I'm able to work through them in a quick way. We are going to study, there's a gentleman who was in the military and he came up with a framework. Let me find it really quick. His name is John Boyd, and he came up with a framework called the OODA loop. And we're going to discuss that in future weeks of Q&A. It talks about how it is the best way for us to work our way through something. That's to observe it, to orient ourselves, to decide, and then to act. And we're going to go through the OODA loop and how it works in future weeks, future episodes here every single Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. It's really helped me a lot, but I'm trying to implement the OODA loop workflow into the way this workflow actually shows up organically for me when I get triggered by something. So here we go. It starts off where I get triggered, and I don't even know I'm triggered. The way I know I'm triggered is that I am feeling, right now we're talking about anger and rage. So before I even know I'm triggered, I realize, oh my gosh, I'm experiencing rage or I'm experiencing anger. And then I realize this isn't normally how I feel. I must be triggered. And then I try to think and I try to observe and I try to orient myself and I try to figure out what was it that triggered me. But it's difficult for me to figure out what triggered me in that moment because I'm thrown into a flashback. Usually I'm thrown in to an emotional flashback, which is even harder sometimes to navigate through than traditional PTSD flashbacks. Emotional flashbacks are ones that take over all of our senses, and we don't even know what the one instance is that caused the flashback, where we're even flashing back to. It's just this feeling of doom, this overall sense of, oh my goodness, my whole world is falling down around me. I don't know what to do. And so that's, if you're not flashing back to an exact instance, but you just feel like you know now that you're triggered because you're feeling the feeling, right? And you realize, oh my goodness, I think I'm in the middle of an emotional flashback. I don't know what I'm flashing back to, but I just feel like I'm out of control right now and I'm frozen, or I'm feeling like I want to hurt somebody or protect myself, or I really want to punish someone, and just I'm feeling uncontrollable feelings of anger or retribution or revenge or whatever. That's the feeling we're talking about this week and last week under anger and rage. And so what happens for me when I'm triggered and I realize, holy crap, I'm totally triggered. I don't know what happened here, but I'm feeling this horrible sense of doom. I'm frozen at first. And then when I'm feeling anger and rage, I'm going from a freeze to a fight. And for me, in my trauma response makeup, the way that I am, I'm usually a freeze fawn. And so even when I have anger and rage showing up, I freeze. And then since I'm feeling anger and rage, I know that it's freeze fight. But since I'm normally a freeze fawn, fight and fawn sort of show up simultaneously. like I'm feeling drawn to this person, but I'm so upset with them that I want to punish them and I want to seek revenge upon them because they've hurt me in some way. Or I don't even know who I'm upset at, what's going on, because I'm in the middle of this emotional flashback and I'm confused. And so I go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and I end up just sort of being like paralyzed, and I'm staying at freeze, okay? So if I can somehow disengage from all of that, from all of this, disengage from all of that, right? If I can somehow find a way to ground myself, whether it's through soaking my hands in cold water so that I can disengage my hypothalamus, or if I can take some deep breaths, or if I can feel something tactile, like my wedding ring has prongs on it, or if I can feel the stucco wall outside on my patio, or if I can just something rough, feel something cold or something that is almost like soothing, or that can bring me into the present, bring me into my body. And I can recognize the sights and the sounds around me. And I realize in that moment, as I'm shifting from this freeze, fight, fawn sort of thing that's going on in the middle of my anger and my rage, and I move to a place where I'm like, I'm going to be able to tolerate this. I know I can. The reason I know that I can tolerate this is because I have in the past, and I've survived a lot of trauma. And I know that any distress that is thrown my way right now, I believe that I have the capability to tolerate it. I'm going to be able to tolerate this. I know I can. I don't feel like I can right now, but I believe by faith that I can. And I have to say these things to myself out loud, okay? And it helps me to sort of get back into my body. So I observe my behaviors at that point, right? I'm observing my behaviors. And the way I know I'm observing my behaviors is because I'm noticing, okay, I'm talking to myself. I'm doing positive self-talk. I can tolerate this. I can tolerate this. And I've moved through the model, right? So I'm observing my behaviors, and I'm realizing that I'm likely triggered into an emotional flashback, and I'm having a natural trauma response, and I am going to be able to tolerate this. It is horrifying that I'm going through this right now, because I start to shame myself, right? This is where all of the negative self-talk comes in. This is where I'm like, what's wrong with me? I'm 44 years old. My trauma, happened so many years ago. I've been healing for 17 or 18 years now. What's my problem? I start shaming myself, but that doesn't help, right? So I have to talk myself out of that negative self-talk by observing my behaviors and choosing some positive things that I know to be true. This is for me personally where my faith comes in, and I have like scriptures that I have memorized, or I have like a friend or a colleague that I can reach out to. I can text my therapist. I can text Sonia. I can reach out to one of our support groups. We have tons of support groups, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of you guys healing all together in safety, helping, supporting one another. You guys are the reason this community is so amazing, right? You guys are the reason that any of this, all of this is even possible, because you guys are here and you have proven that this works. You're all in groups together supporting one another, and together we know we can tolerate what's going on with everybody's help, right? You can't do it all on your own. So I'm observing my behaviors, and I'm realizing what's going on. And in a moment of clarity, I choose self-soothing. And while in the midst, I'm trying not to shame myself that I'm going through all of this, right? So the way that I'm self-soothing, rather than a maladaptive coping strategy, like some sort of addiction or self-harming behavior, like eating disorder, or binge eating, or any type like cutting, self-harming, things that we're drawn to that cause us to either not feel numb or cause us to numb, because we just want to either feel nothing, or we've felt nothing for so long that we want to feel something. So in an act of me wanting to choose something healthy, and I want to choose to self-soothe in a healthy way, right? This is healthy. I go into one of our groups and I post, if I need to, I post a trigger warning and I say, I'm feeling these things. This is what I'm going through. Has anybody else ever felt this way? Or any thoughts or kind words or prayers, or, anything that you would like to send my way are absolutely appreciated. and I receive the support that I need and deserve, and I'm able to self-soothe because I'm feeling more supported. And then as a radical act of self-care, I usually will take some sort of a nap, or I'll go for a drive, or I'll go for a walk. I will maybe do some stretching. I'll maybe jump, like try to go for a swim, do something like that, so that I'm taking care of myself, doing something that's healthy for myself. I'll make sure that I'm hydrating, make sure that I'm, I'll check in with myself while I'm doing self-soothing, right? While I'm observing my behaviors and doing self-soothing, I check in, like, what have I eaten? I'm feeling maybe a little shaky. Have I hydrated? Have I eaten well today? Did I take a B12 vitamin? B12 always really helps me. So I'm taking good care of myself, taking a nap, going for a walk, doing something that's going to help me take care of myself. And then it seems like a lifetime ago that I was up here at the trigger, when in all actuality, this can take either a few minutes, a few hours, a few days, depending on how bad it was. And then I always need to remember to be patient with myself, you guys. Patience is the key to healing. We deserve to give ourselves patience. Many of us grew up in an environment where we were rushed. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. We had unrealistic expectations put on us by other people or by ourselves. And we were striving towards perfectionism, which caused us to freeze and then go into a shame spiral. So patience is key. We have to be patient with ourselves if we are ever going to heal. So please give yourself as much time as you need, or as much time as you have. I know sometimes we have little ones. We have, babies or multiple children running around, and we don't have a lot of time. So whatever time you do have, we don't have the time we need. We don't have like hours, months, or days, or weeks, or whatever. But if you have just a few minutes, or even just 1 minute, do what you can in the few minutes that you have to help yourself feel better and more capable, whether it's checking in with a group, or deep breathing, or making sure that you're hydrating or eating something healthy. And just remember that we are worthy of all the time and the effort that it takes to heal, you guys. We are worth it, okay? So again, if you want to get plugged into a safe group, please email, you know what I should do? Here, I'll go lisa@cptsdfoundation.org. You should email Lisa to get plugged into a safe group. And she will get you plugged into, we have several different groups. We have one for LGBT, we have one for just women, we have a group for men and women healing together, we have a group for people who have only experienced emotional abuse. A lot of our groups are for people who have experienced sexual abuse, narcissistic abuse. We have groups that will help you, and they're all free, okay? So please get the help you deserve, because you are worth it. And I'm going to answer your guys' questions now. But please, does any of that help you guys? Like, let me know if any of what I just shared with you, that's the framework we've been working with for the past couple weeks, and let me know if that's helping you. Okay, I just had to get a drink of water. So let me know if that's helping you at all. I'm going to go and I'm just going to look at your guys's, see if you guys have sent in anything. Ooh, Shannon asks a great question about bargaining. We haven't gotten to bargaining yet. Last week, 2 weeks ago, we studied fear and unsafety. And then the last couple of weeks, we've been discussing anger and rage and how they show up. But Shannon, please, please, please stay tuned in the weeks ahead, because we're going through all the emotions. And I believe what you're talking about is the framework for healing grief. You're talking about denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, I believe is what you're talking about here. Yeah, I'm not there yet. we're not working through the grief framework yet. But I will be. It just hasn't happened yet. You're ahead of me, Shannon. You're here so much. You're doing so much work on yourself. It's amazing. Can someone tag Shannon and tell her how amazing she is and that I appreciate her? I hope she can hear me. I'm talking to her right now. But I'm going to go back. I think I talked a little bit last week about Katie Lee saying she really struggles to access anger, and she bursts into tears if she's told off or corrected when she's done something wrong. Like if she's at work, she feels like she's 4 years old. And I had that for probably, gosh, I probably had that for the first 3 years of my trauma recovery, because I was still stuck in perfectionism, right? I hadn't given myself permission to be imperfect. I didn't even know at that point in my recovery that the expectations that were put on me when I was younger were unrealistic. So if we don't know that the expectations that are being put upon us are unrealistic, then we take those unrealistic expectations and we hold ourselves to that sort of standard for the rest of our lives until somebody tells us, you're kind of a little hard on yourself. And like, if we're open to it, then we can actually receive that and embrace it and go, you know what? Wow, I've been stuck in some perfectionism. And like, you guys know, we love Brene Brown on this channel. And Brene Brown always says, wherever perfectionism is driving, shame is riding shotgun. So, yeah. So we have shame that's keeping us from healing because we're holding ourselves to unrealistic expectations. So I'm going to move through these questions as quickly as I can because I want to get to as many as I can about the topic of anger. So Ashton says, I've been in my recovery journey for about 2 years now, and anger is not an emotion that I have been able to relate with. Is this normal? How can I approach feeling this emotion? Can someone tag Ashton and let Ashton know that I'm finally answering their question, that I'm like on week 2? Because I got so many people that are like, yes, do a week 2. So yes, I don't think I accessed my anger. I don't think I accessed my anger until like the 10th year of my recovery. I know that that doesn't give people a lot of hope because you're like, Athena, I don't have 10 years. Like, seriously, really? It's not going to take you guys 10 years. Because when I first started healing, there was no such thing as YouTube. There was no such thing as like watching a video and going, oh, that's how it's done. You know, there was no Wikipedia, WikiHow, Wiki everything. There was no wiki. I had to drive to the library and use my library card, and I could only check out 2 or 3 books at a time, and then I had to like return one and get a different one. And you know, so I just want you guys to know that even though it takes a while for us to heal, and feeling certain feelings is difficult, I want you to know it's possible. So to Ashton's point, Ashton wants to know if not being able to feel anger is normal and how Ashton can approach feeling this emotion. So it is normal if your abuse happened before the age of 8. It's more common. I want to say it's normal, or, you know, common. Normal is one of those words that we're like, try not to use, because it's like normal is the setting on a washing machine, but it is very common, Ashton. It's even more common if your abuse happened before the age of 8 or started at a young age, like before the age of 8. And then, but even if it didn't, it is common because you were likely taught from a very young age that you don't say no to anybody, and that anger is scary, anger is bad. So if that is the reality for you, then yes, it's very common. If that's not the reality for you, then I'm not certain as to why you wouldn't be able to experience anger unless there's something repressed. And in that case, you don't need to go like hunting for whatever it is that's repressed. It will organically come out for you as you are committed to your trauma recovery. But the short answer is yes, it's super common, super duper common, especially for me. Like I said, I couldn't access my anger for at least 10 years, like maybe even longer, just because I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know that not expressing my anger was going to keep me stuck. I didn't know that. No one told me that. By the way, Athena, if you don't find your anger, you will never heal. If you don't experience a range of emotions, all of your emotions, Athena, then you're not going to heal fully. Like, no one told me those things. Again, there was no YouTube, and trauma informed was not really a thing when I started healing, you know. And if it was, I didn't have access to those medical journals, and I didn't look hard enough for information. Perhaps maybe I looked in the wrong places, but thank you for your question, Ashton. Carol says, can anger present or feel like I'm being verbally attacked or ganged up on? Yes, yes, yes. In those moments, Carol, if someone can tag Carol, in those moments when you feel like you are being verbally attacked or ganged up on, if there's a way for you to, this is what's worked for me. I've shared this on this channel about 12 times over the course of 4 years. And every time I share it, I get like a slew of comments and emails because it's very, very helpful. My second therapist, Karen, taught me that if you looked at a range of emotions of like, can anger present as or feel like I'm being verbally ganged up on or attacked? And if you look at yourself and go, how am I feeling in this moment? What's the volume of my reaction right now? If my reaction had like a 0 to 10 volume, where am I? Am I like in like between like the 0 and 5, like kind of like low volume? It's not that loud. It's not that big. Or I'm feeling like I'm being verbally attacked or ganged up on, and I'm like reacting to this, and the volume of that response, if it were like, if reactionary, if we could gauge something that was reactionary, if as though it were volume on a stereo, if it's between a 6 and a 10, then that is likely repressed anger that you were never allowed to experience as a young child from 6 to 10. And it's likely something old, like childhood related. But if it's between like a 0 and a 5, it's very natural for us to be upset with people. Like if my husband said or did something horrifically like just wrong, which I can't picture him doing that, but let's just say he did. And I was like, hey, that's just not okay. I feel very upset that you did that. And I was sort of like, hey, right? And like, I would pause for a second and be like, is my reaction corresponding with the level of what it is that's going on? And it seems natural, like between like a 0 and a 5, it's very relational. It's here and now. But if like my husband did something and I flipped out and I screamed or I threw something, or I was like feeling like I wanted to like get revenge on him or hurt him or punish him or whatever, when we have anything that's between a 6 and a 10, that's not relational. That's like from a long time ago. That's childhood stuff. That's something that's trauma-based if it's between a 6 and a 10. So 0 to 5, I'm kind of irritated, to like, that totally ticks me off, like 0 to 5, then that's relational, and that's, you know, that's an average level of being upset about something that's happening here and now. And people do things here and now that upset us that don't have anything to do with our childhood trauma. Like people can be a-holes now, present day, and it can piss us off and have nothing to do with our childhood trauma. It's possible. But if something ticks us off and triggers us into like a 6 to a 10, and we know ourselves, like when we're between a 6 and a 10, then it is likely that that is something that's older. And it's not relational. It's actually trauma-based, complex trauma-based. So could be attachment trauma-based, just depending on the volume. So Carol, ask yourself, is the level of anger I'm feeling right now, is it between a 0 and a 5, like in the here and the now, like relationally? Or am I experiencing something between like a 6 and a 10, like I'm being like ganged up on or verbally attacked, even though someone said something that seems like rather small? Then you might be able to go like, what does this remind me of? Why does this feel familiar? And then again, you don't have to go on a scavenger hunt, but just journal about it. Write down some things. It helps. It totally will help. I hope that was helpful. Holistic Recovery says, how do we not get triggered into anger with all of the crazy making going on in the world today? Well, I mean, that's a great question, Holistic Recovery. The crazy making that's going on in the world today is anger inducing. But again, I think that the appropriate response isn't that we don't get triggered into anger. It's that the level of anger is appropriate with what it is that's going on, and that it's not out of control. Like we're not raging out wanting to harm other people or animals or harm the environment, or just like we're not causing harm as a result of being triggered into anger. That's never healthy. But feeling righteously angry about something, feeling justifiably angry about something that is unfair or unconstitutional or just wrong, I believe is a healthy response. And until we embrace that anger is a healthy response, now there's going to be a whole slew of people that are like, you don't understand, Athena. Anger in my family is frowned upon, and society doesn't allow me to be angry, and da 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 da. And there's going to be like a list of things. But I'm not talking to you about that. I'm talking about being triggered into an uncontrollable rage where you harm other people, other living beings, the environment, as a result of being uncontrollably angry. And that's never healthy. We seek help when that happens, and then we heal. And if we don't heal when we seek help about the thing that made us upset, then that's a good indication that it's trauma-based. And then we go into trauma therapy and we work out our trauma. And then we feel all of our feels, including our anger. And when we feel all of our feels, we heal. So I would say to holistic recovery, I don't think the answer is to not get triggered into anger with all the crazy making. I would say that we experience appropriate levels of anger at the crazy making that's going on in the world, because there's some crazy shiz going on in the world right now, you guys. There just is. There's crazy stuff. It's crazy. The things that people are coming up with, the movements and the justifications and the cover-ups and the silencing and the finger pointing and the passing of the buck. It is just anger inducing, and it's just wrong. So I feel angry about it in a healthy way, I think. Now, there was definitely a time several years back when I wouldn't have been able to feel any anger about that. I would have just been like, well, I'm just going to keep quiet because it's none of my business. And I just don't want to say anything to get anybody upset with me, because that was me in people pleaser mode. But I can sit here on a public YouTube channel in front of 50 something people and be like, the world is crazy. And there are a lot of very unsatisfactory, not nice people out in the world right now doing a lot of really horrible things to a lot of really wonderful people. And it's not okay. It's never going to be okay. But I can feel appropriate levels of anger and not take that out on people that don't deserve it. Like, it's not uncontrollable. I hope that makes sense. Please let me know if this is helping you guys. 2020, 20 more hours to go says, how do we know when our anger is healthy and when it is coming from our trauma? We are so conditioned to never show or feel anger. Plus, I have so much rage about abuse and classism, etc. So there's a lot packed into this one question. How do we know when our anger is healthy and when it is coming from our trauma? So I do think that our anger can be healthy and come from our trauma. I think that the two are not mutually exclusive. They can coincide. They can actually hang out together. I think healthy levels of anger can be healthy levels of anger from our trauma. And then I also think that there can be healthy levels of anger about things that are not trauma related. But if for some reason there's any question in here about, like, healthy levels of anger versus like uncontrollable rage, I think, again, using that 0 to 10 has really helped me. It's just what helps me. There are plenty of practitioners and clinicians that have different ways of kind of like figuring out how to gauge, levels of anger and like how things show up. But for me, the 0 to 10 works. It totally works. And it helps me to know, like, where am I at right now? Am I at an uncontrollable place where I'm feeling uncontrollably angry about something that is out of my control? And am I feeling like I want retribution? Am I feeling like I want to like harm someone or punish them because of the way I'm feeling? And then that's kind of how I know. If it's 0 to 5, then I feel like that's healthy. And if it's from like a 6 to a 10, I'm like, ooh, that's childhood related. And then from the 6 to the 10 doesn't mean that it's unhealthy anger. It just means that it's old stuff, like it's from a long time ago. And I think that handling that and sitting with it and not numbing, stuffing, or avoiding it, don't stick it on a shelf forevermore, like knowing that we're going to get to it another time, and don't stuff it down because ain't nobody got time for this. And then don't like numb it through food or drugs or alcohol to the extent, or dissociation, where you're not dealing with it at all. Because again, that's like a form of denial, and we can't deny that our pain is there, because the pain is there. That's why we're feeling these feelings. You know what I mean? So I think it was Richard Grennan that says, like, feelings are loyal messengers that are it's like we are like the queen or the king of the kingdom or the queendom, and we have these loyal messengers that come and they bring us little notes and hand them to us. Your Majesty, here you go, here's a message, this is a, and they're loyal messengers, and they're delivering a message to us, which is a feeling, and they're loyal. Like, they only want what's good for us. They want us to be safe. They want us to be healthy. They want us to prosper. They want us to live long and prosper. And, so I want to really drive home that the feelings we're feeling are all needing to be felt. And the question that she's asking here, which is, how do we know when the anger is healthy and when it is coming from our trauma? I think that they can hang out together. Healthy anger and anger from our trauma can hang out together. They're not mutually exclusive, because it is okay to feel healthy levels of anger about our trauma. And I want to agree with what this says. 20 more hours to go says, we are so conditioned to never show or feel anger. Plus, I have so much rage about abuse and classism, etc. So yes, we are conditioned to never feel or show anger. We were never allowed to say no. We were never allowed to feel anything. We were never allowed to have unique feelings of ourselves that didn't belong to the people that were raising us, that needed us to act a certain way or be a certain way. And that's just wrong. And I too have a lot of anger around abuse and classism. I think it's wrong, and it should be talked about and handled. You guys know I said this on this channel from day one, and I'll continue to say it again. I am more of an advocate than I am an activist. And what I mean by that is, I advocate for others, and I get very pumped up about that. And I am an advocate for our community because I believe in healing and that we deserve to heal. If I were to be an activist about anything, I wouldn't probably join anybody else's thing that they have going on regarding whatever, and sort of be an activist in what they're doing. I don't see anybody doing anything about something I feel very passionate about, and I would probably become an activist on one particular topic. And I've mentioned it here before a lot, and I get a lot of hate mail. So I'm hesitating. I feel myself hesitating. I feel myself going into people pleaser mode and not saying something. If I were to ever become an activist, here we go. I'm going to say it. I'm just going to say it. If someone could tag 20 more hours to go so that she knows that I'm talking and I'm answering her question. I advocate for our community because I believe in what it is that we're doing. And I believe that healing is going forth. I know it is. I receive messages through all social media channels, plus email, plus voice messages, plus physical cards and letters and poetry and artwork from you people everywhere that are in all these different countries. There's over 180 countries represented on this one YouTube channel, and it's amazing. And so I advocate for this community, and I'm passionate. But if I were to become an activist, what I would become an activist about, the topic that I would be, raising my fist about, is that the church, as people know it, the modern day church, where people go to church, they are not safe places for adult survivors of childhood trauma. Because what happens, by and large, I know I'm painting with broad strokes right now, and I usually get a lot of hate mail, and that's okay. I'm prepared for it. Send Joe hate mail. I'm fine. I will go ahead and respond to it. But I'm painting with broad strokes here, and this isn't the case globally, but many of the churches, the local churches, as we know them, church bodies, buildings where people go to attend on a Saturday or a Sunday or whatever, they are not safe places for adult survivors of childhood trauma. Adult survivors of childhood trauma, complex trauma, attachment trauma walk into churches and they share that they're struggling with something that happened 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. And they are told again, painting with broad strokes, if you didn't tell somebody this, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about other churches. Not you, other churches. They are told that they need to forgive and they need to move on because that's what Jesus would do. And I am just here to say right now, this is me being an activist, it's not a one and done. It's not a one-step program like that. It's very complex. There are needs. And you can't tell somebody not to feel the feelings and expect them to heal. They have to feel the feelings. They have to feel safe. People have to feel safe within the context of relationships. And the quote unquote church these days does not provide safety for people. And it should be a safe place for people. And it's not. So that's me being an activist. Not very attractive, right? So bring on the hate mail. I'm ready for it. Those are excellent questions. If someone could please tag 2020, 20 more hours to go and thank her for causing me to be an activist for a few minutes, because if I were to be an activist, that's what I would be an activist about. And I think I'd be pretty darn effective because I'm pretty passionate about it. But it's not my job to tell anybody what to believe, who to believe in, what to believe. So I'm just going to continue to help people heal. And the way I do that is by advocating for you guys and creating a safe space in this community for people to come and heal, free from predators, in safety, away from harm, for free. And that's what I do. So I digress. John Harvey says, I'm not really angry about my abuse, and I try not to let it feel like what happened was okay, but I don't get angry hearing other people's abuse, but I do get angry hearing other people's abuse stories. Can it hurt us to be like this? So first of all, John Harvey, I want to say thank you for being so honest, because so many of us experience this. We can't get angry about our own abuse. But when we hear that someone did something to someone we care about, we're like, oh, hell to the no. You did not just say that. They did not do that to you. That did not just happen. Let me at them. I want to hurt them. And that's natural because and there's a reason, John Harvey, our self-worth never had an opportunity to grow and flourish and blossom and bloom. And so we don't have a lot of self-worth. But what we do have is compassion and empathy. And so we see someone we care about hurting and we're like, who did this to you? I want to hurt them. And we get righteously angry and justifiably angry. And that's very, 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 very common. I don't want to say that it's going to hurt you to be like this, John Harvey, because I honestly think this is going to help you. And this is why. I spent over 10 years only getting angry when something would happen to somebody else. And I was fiercely protective of my child, my own child. And it took being fiercely protective of my own child and people in this community, actually, before I could actually sort of reflect that and apply it to my own situation. So sometimes we have to exercise that muscle in another direction before we can apply it back to ourselves. So I don't think it's going to hurt you. I think it's going to help you. So keep doing what you're doing because you're doing everything right. Joey says, what do you do when your coach says that the anger you're feeling is covered up by another emotion? I have been struggling the last month and I get aggravated so easily, and she says that that is a cover up for another emotion. How do I get to the bottom of what is making me angry and when I have no idea what I am feeling? Also, I am afraid to get angry because I'm afraid I will turn into my mother and my stepfather. So I relate to everything that Joey is saying, and I also agree with your coach, whoever your coach is. I hope your coach is trauma-informed, first of all. You've been in our community for a while, so I know that you know what trauma-informed is. So I'm hoping that your coach is trauma-informed. And I will agree that anger is a cover-up for another emotion. And it's just going to happen organically, Joey. It's going to happen organically. And you being afraid of being angry because you're going to turn into your mother and your stepfather is also very common. I felt that way for a really, really, really long time. I was afraid to feel angry because I didn't want to see myself in the same light as I saw my abusers. Because one of the main characteristics of my abusers is that they were very angry people. And so in an effort to be the absolute opposite of my abuser, can someone tag Joey, please? Because Joey needs to know I'm talking to her right now. So in an effort for me to not turn into my abuser, I wanted to pretend that not pretend, but I wanted to remain calm. And I wanted to always remain in control of my emotions because uncontrollable anger is unacceptable and it makes you abuse children. That was like what I had deduced in my mind. So since I looked at their anger and I was like, that's what abusers look like. They're angry people. Okay. At least that's what it was like in my case, right? So all of my abusers, almost all of my abusers, were really angry, angry people. So in an effort to be the absolute opposite and reinvent the wheel every day of my life for 40 years, I was like, I will never be an angry person. And so I will always remain calm. And unfortunately, that kind of worked to my detriment. I didn't even allow myself to do what John Harvey's talking about here, which is getting upset about other people's stuff, because I didn't allow myself to see anybody else's stuff. I just lived in my own little bubble and I just remained calm all the time. And that sort of prolonged my healing journey. So Joey, I'm not going to tell you what anger is covering up for you because I don't know. I can only guess, and I can only tell you what anger was covering up for me, because I can only talk about myself because this channel is from a lived experience perspective. So Joey, for me, anger and my ability to experience anger and my lack of ability to experience anger is because I was afraid, first of all, that it would trigger me into being just like my abuser, and I didn't want that. But secondly, for me, the root emotion that anger was covering up was grief. I was deeply, deeply, deeply grieved and sad about the innocence I never had and the relationship with my family of origin that I thought I had that I really didn't, and that I always wanted but I never would ever have ever. And so it was a deep, deep, deep sense of loss and grief. And intuitively, my brain protects me from reaching and accessing that grief. And no, my brain, being as smart as it is, didn't even let me access anger, because anger would trigger the grief. Because once I uncover the anger, then I would reach the grief. And I honestly think that my brain thought that I would die, literally die of a broken heart, die of grief, because of me, the profound sense of grief that I had for the life I never had. So I hope that's helpful for you, Joey. It doesn't end here. It goes on, and you heal layers. Layers and layers and layers and layers and layers. It's never a one and done. It's never like, okay, I'm going to get really, 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 really angry. I'm going to feel the anger, and then I'm going to get to the grief, and then I'm going to feel the grief, and then I'm going to be fine. Like, that's how I wanted to do it. I had a system. Had a little workflow, the whole deal. You saw how I do workflows and little outlines, and I like workflows, and I like things that are organized. I really like it. I'm not a very organized person, but when I can implement organization in my life, oh, I'm so happy. But that's not necessarily something I can apply to this, Joey. You have to allow it to come naturally and organically. If you feel anger come up in you, instead of shoving it back down or trying not to cry, allow yourself to feel it, and allow yourself to cry if you feel like crying. A lot of us were taught that crying is wrong, and then we don't allow ourselves to cry. And when we don't allow ourselves to cry, we will not heal. So I thought I would be engulfed with grief, and that grief would kill me. I would literally die crying because I just had no more tears to cry. That's how once I got past the anger, that's how I felt. So I could tell why my brain was protecting me for so many years and not wanting me to feel the anger, because then I would reach the grief. So that was just for me, Joey. I'm not saying that that's what's happening with you, because I don't know what's happening with you, because I'm not you. And all of us are different, and we all have different recovery journeys. Holistic Recovery says, can you talk about righteous anger after narcissistic abuse? Yes, I can. It is natural for us to feel righteously angry and justifiably angry. For those of you who don't identify with the word righteously angry, righteously angry, justifiably angry, I'm using those synonymously in this context. And when someone is narcissistically abused, meaning that they were gaslit and emotionally abused and manipulated and covertly sort of preyed upon, that is a vile thing to do to anyone. And if we look at someone who has been narcissistically abused, or we know that we have been abused by someone who is likely narcissistically plagued, if their pathology points to the fact that they're malignantly narcissistic, or there's some sadistic tendencies, or there's psychopathy, or whatever the blend might be going on there on the cluster B spectrum, it is natural for us to feel a sense of that is wrong. It is wrong that they preyed upon that person. And I think I want to give you permission to express and feel how wrong that is. Because if someone did that to someone you love, you would think that it was so wrong. And when we live through it, it's almost like, well, I kind of deserved it because I welcomed it. And like, you know, I could have said no and I didn't. And then we go through this whole like spiritual bypassing, and like we ignore the facts, and we are responsibility takers, and we take responsibility for the predatory people in our lives because we're old enough to know better. And, you know, those are dangerous stances to take that cause us to really push the pause button on our healing. And I really just caution you from doing that. So I encourage anyone and everyone, I give you permission and encourage you adamantly and vehemently to allow yourself to be angry if you see someone, anyone, including the person in the mirror, being abused by anyone, that the natural, organic response, the only logical response, is anger. And I promise you won't uncover grief and die from grief. I promise you won't. You might feel feelings that you aren't comfortable with, but those feelings are loyal messengers that you need to feel in order to heal. You're on a journey. You're on a journey. You're not heading towards a destination. You're on a journey. It's a journey. We're on a healing journey. It's not a healing destination. It's a journey. It's going to take a while. There's going to be mountains. There's going to be valleys. There's going to be winding roads, and you're going to meet a lot of people along the way. But I urge you and I encourage you to feel the feelings that come up for you. Anger, indignation, frustration, and, you know, just check yourself though. You know, like, am I feeling like I want to harm another person or the environment or another living being? And if so, then tell somebody so that you don't do something stupid in the midst of your anger, because that's never okay. Hopefully that's helpful. Ashton says, anger is very hard for me to feel and express because of when my abuse occurred. Do you have any suggestions for healthy ways to tap into this emotion if and when it comes up? Yes, Ashton. If your abuse happened before the age of 8, or it started before the age of 8, I would encourage you to work with a therapist or someone who's trauma informed, a social worker, a coach, a therapist, a doctor, someone who understands trauma and knows that the anger you're experiencing here and now has something to do with a long time ago. Like, we're always talking about the symptoms here and the root of what actually happened. Like, here's the root. This is the petals to the flower. The flower always has petals, and it's what's happening now. And then the root is where it came from a long time ago. So I suggest you work with someone who's trauma informed, most definitely, because healthy ways to tap into that, I mean, you could try an expressive modality. You could try art. You could try clay. You could try some like sand, like the little Zen boxes. You can try journaling. There's all kinds of expressive modalities that allow you to experience and express emotions that you're unable to describe in words because the bridge is out from your left hemisphere of your brain to the right hemisphere of your brain. Remember, the language center of the brain is in the left hemisphere. Trauma is experienced in the right hemisphere of the brain. It's the way, it's that way on every human. 100% of humans experience trauma in the right hemisphere of the brain. And 100% of humans have the language center where words come out on the left hemisphere of the brain. Guess what? There's a bridge connecting those two. And when we are in a freeze response or a trauma response, or we're in shock, we don't have words for it. When we're experiencing things that are traumatic, rarely do we have words to describe what it is that we're feeling. We're almost speechless in that moment, but we feel a range of emotions. It's not until later, when the bridge is back in, that we can put words to our emotions. And one of the key components to accessing those words is using expressive modalities like art or clay or Zen boxes and sand, or music therapy, journaling, all kinds of expressive modalities. It really helps a lot, because then it's almost like you're handling it from like a peripheral perspective. You're not handling it head on where you're going to like lose access to your words. I hope that's helpful, Ashton. Deborah says, can people sometimes perceive me to be angry when I don't feel angry? I think so. I think people sometimes, like, they'll see my face look a certain way, and I could be in a semi-dissociative state, like because I'm traumatized by something or in a flashback, and so my face looks like angry. But I'm not feeling angry, but they're perceiving it to be angry because it's not the face they normally see. They normally see my face like this, but if I'm like this, you know, like looking like I'm somewhere else, they think, what's wrong? Like, hello, like, what's the matter? Are you angry? And I'm like, no, I don't think I'm angry. Like, should I be? You know, but sometimes with people who are living as a result of complex trauma, living with CPTSD symptoms, they get told all the time that they're like fake or phony or angry or like a range of different things because they are in another place. They have dissociative episodes. So that happened to me at least a lot. So Katie says, I'm exhausted by my mom not hearing me and ignoring my boundaries. She then plays dumb every time. I want her to hear, but now I wonder if it's me and maybe I'm being abusive and controlling. Okay, Katie, I want to say that I've gotten to know you a little bit over the years, or at least the past year. And I too would be exhausted. And when people ignore your boundaries and don't hear you, it is enraging. It is very frustrating. And then when they play dumb, it's a covert tactic and it's really frustrating. And it's natural for us to want them to hear. And then they say or do things that cause us to wonder if it's us. This is a textbook vulnerable narcissist or covert narcissist tactic. I don't know your mom. I'm not diagnosing your mom as a covert narcissist, but I'm just saying I recognize this for what it is. And it's not you. You're being, you know, you're in an unhealthy, at best, relationship there. I'm not saying it's toxic. I'm saying it's unhealthy. It looks like an unhealthy dynamic. And I've gotten to know you a little bit over the years. It's not only from this one comment here. It's over, maybe not years. Maybe it's been months. Maybe it's been a year. But like I've seen you around and I know a little bit about what you've shared. And it's a little bit of a pattern. And I would beware and I would limit contact with people that make you feel this way. If anyone, this is for all of us, okay? This is for all of us. I recommend limiting contact with anyone who causes you to feel as though you're the problem. If there is anyone in your life that causes you to feel like you're insignificant or that you're not worth listening to or like you're the problem, I recommend limiting contact with them. Am I saying you have to go no contact? What if this is a parent? No, I'm not. It's okay. I understand. Not everybody can go no contact. Sometimes we have to parent our children with these people. Sometimes we have to show up for Thanksgiving or for winter holidays or for summer holidays or for birthdays, and we don't want to cut ourselves off from family. I get it. But limit your contact with people that cause you to doubt your worth, please. Because you'll feel angry less often, you'll feel misunderstood less often, and you'll feel good more often. And that's the goal. So I support you 100%, Katie, to limit your contact with this person if possible. Gary says, I have resolved some of my anger and I get angry less, but I want to dig out more without waiting for it to arise. Is there a good way to do this? I cannot confidently recommend that you look for ways to dig it out. I know that's not what you want to hear, Gary, because you're such a hard worker and you work so hard for your health. Oh my goodness. So what I'm recommending here, first of all, I want to commend you for resolving some of the issues that you have with anger. You've worked so hard to resolve the issues that you have surrounding a range of different emotions. You sit with things, you give it time, you're very introspective, you're respectful of yourself and others. You don't rush your way through it. You're very contemplative. I want to commend you for doing all those things. It takes a lot of patience to do those things. But when you want to dig it out without waiting for it to arise, I can't confidently and ethically tell you that that's a good idea, because I always believe that it's good to wait for things to organically come up rather than going on like a witch hunt to try to find these emotions that are bothering us and we just want to get rid of them. Providing a safe place for yourself where you're proactively setting yourself up for success is a way that you could handle this. Even like approaching it as, I'm going to set myself up for success right now. And if anger or fear or unsafety or anything comes up during this time, I have a safe place provided for myself so that I can process these emotions in a healthy way. You can even say it that way to yourself. And that way your subconscious knows that you're safe. And then when our subconscious knows that we're safe, it allows things to come up organically more often. So I hope that was helpful. If someone could tag Gary and let him know that I just answered his question. Dana says, I'm terrified of anger, no matter whose it is. The only person I can express anger toward is myself. I say things to myself that I would never say to another person. Oh, Dana, I was so the same way. And I'm still kind of that same way occasionally sometimes. Not as much anymore because I'm trying to be more mindful about the way that I talk to myself. But it's very, 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 very common, Dana. And I just want you to know you work so hard for your health also, and I know you're going to get there. Being terrified of anger is completely understandable considering the environment you came from, Dana. Completely understandable. So please be patient with yourself because it will happen. It will come up. I want to give you permission to feel all the things you need to feel. And even whatever that anger is covering up, that anger might be covering up fear. That anger might be covering up grief. Whatever it's covering, I just want to give you permission to feel all those feelings and know that your body's just trying to protect itself if you have trouble experiencing certain emotions like anger. Your brain's just trying to protect you. And sometimes we're like, I wish it would just hurry up already, but patience is the key, right? Patience. Sharon says, anger. How do you recognize anger? I'm not sure I've ever felt anger before. Anger. Anger is something I would identify as the urge to fix something that is wrong that might be construed as like someone else might not like that. Like if, this is good, if someone could tag Sharon. Sharon, if my husband came home right now and he walked in from like right there, which he will probably do in like a couple of minutes because he should be home anytime. And if he came in and he said something unkind to me, or raised his voice at me or touched me, which by the way, he would never do any of these things. Are you kidding me? But let's say something like that. Let's say a stranger entered the camera right now. Sharon, I know sometimes you watch this on the big television on Roku. So let's say Sharon's watching this on Roku and you're sitting there in your living room, Sharon, you're there in your safe place where you moved to. And then you see on the right-hand side of the screen or the left-hand side of the screen, I can't remember if this is like switched. You see someone enter the camera and they're walking up behind me, Sharon, and they're getting ready to hurt me. They're going to do something to me. In that moment, Sharon, you're going to feel an urge to like, wait, and you're going to like, wait, don't do that. Or you're going to want to do something about that. That feeling that I just described to you, whatever came up for you, feel what that feels like in your body. I know you well enough to know that you would be angry on my behalf. That is anger. Yes, it stems from fear, yes, but there's also grief mixed in there, and there's a thing that comes up that causes you to want to justifiably stop what's going on and do something about it. That, my friend, is anger. I hope that was helpful. Willow says, I'm repetitively ignored I feel talked at like a soundboard. I start talking and they respond on a different subject. And then I explode in tears for them to please hear me. And then I am the crazy one. Oh, Willow. I was in that situation for about 20 years of my life. What you've described there is a very toxic, unhealthy situation from what I'm reading just in this one comment. And I would stay away from whatever is going on. Whatever environment you're in that is causing this that you just described, that is unhealthy. It's very toxic and it's manipulative and it's crazy making. So please get away from that. Let's see. Heroes Don't Wear Capes says, is it possible that my inability to express anger is keeping me stuck? Yes. Because I'm frozen in all aspects of my life and I can't figure it out. Yes. Sometimes if we don't experience anger, if we don't feel all of our feels, we're never going to heal. So we have to feel a range of emotions. Some things are right, some things are wrong, some things are good, some things are bad, some things need to be stopped, some things we need to move forward on, something, it's just life is this fluid thing that moves. And when we don't feel a certain emotion, there's no fluidity, there's no flow in life, right? If we can feel everything but anger, and then life is like we're cruising along life and we feel, oh, there's a speed bump. Okay, well, we're cruising along. Oh, okay, well, we couldn't feel that. Okay, so we're going to, and you know what I'm trying to say? Hopefully heroes don't wear capes. Somebody tag heroes don't wear capes. So we would, if we experienced all of our emotions and we feel all of our feels, and we're going to be healing. We're on a healing journey. So here we are, we're moving forward in our healing journey, right? But if there's a dip, where there's no emotion present because we don't allow ourselves to feel that one, then it's going to be like, oh, we fall into a ditch. And then we're experiencing life and we're moving through life and we're like, oh, we fell into this ditch again. Because where anger should be, there's a big divot. And then we fall into it. And then we have to like get ourselves back out. Oh, okay, well, we didn't feel that. And then but if we can feel all of our emotions, it's like, oh, that's frustrating. Oh my gosh, well, that's good. Well, let's do that. Okay, well, gosh, I don't really like that, but we're going to work our way through it. And like, it's kind of like this journey, and like, it's this fluid thing when all the feelings are present, right? Like, fear, anger, sadness, grief, joy, success, happiness. It's a range of different things. We're going to have highs, we're going to have lows. Not everything's going to be great. Not everything's going to be horrible. But if there are certain emotions that we have X'd out of the options, then we're going to experience like a speed bump, or not even a speed bump, but like a dip, like a ditch where an emotion should have been. So that's the best way I can kind of explain it. Oh, last question. Tracy says, how do I stop feeling like my feelings of anger are going to kill me and stop compulsively hurting myself for my anger like my father? Tracy, it sounds like your anger, like it was for me, it's covering up perhaps some grief or some abandonment, some serious pain that we don't think that we would be able to live through if we accepted the reality of it. But oh, Harriet, could you pop up a video here? It's on like something about accepting the reality of our abuse. I think that's what it's called, accepting the reality. Tracy, that's a really good one. If you haven't seen that video on accepting the reality of our abuse, it's kind of a bitter pill to swallow, because accepting the reality means that we accept what really happened and we don't get to believe our fantasy that we want. Like, we have a fantasy in our mind of the way we want things to play out and how we really thought things were. And Tracy, honestly, also having the support of others around you, like we have in our groups. I know you're there and you're active. That helps. But when you say, how do I stop feeling like my feelings of anger are going to kill me? I think it's just jumping off that cliff and being like, okay, like I told Gary Pfeiffer earlier, I'm going to provide this safe space for me. And if I feel anger, then I'm going to allow myself to feel the anger. And it's not going to kill me, because I've survived so much that I can handle an emotion. I've survived horrific abuse. So I know that I can handle emotions, because emotions are faithful messengers that only want what's best for us. They will not harm us on purpose. They just only want to protect us and help us to grow and to heal. So I hope that this has been helpful, you guys. Next week, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we are going to tackle the topic of happiness and hopefulness. I receive emails and comments and quotes and messages from you guys on a very regular basis. Things are finally going good for me in my life, Athena, and I finally feel hopeful. And then it's immediately replaced by feelings of doom, and I'm afraid to feel happy for so many different reasons. Why is this? Why is this? And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that next week. And it's going to follow a different framework. So the framework that we've been sharing for the last 3 weeks is going to change a little bit. It's going to change slightly. So 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, every single Monday right here. You guys are the reason that this community is so amazing. You show up every week. Let me get a drink of water. Hold on one sec. You show up every week wanting to heal and wanting to help one another and wanting to support one another. And it is just the most beautiful thing ever. You guys are the reason that this place is so amazing. So you're the reason the groups are so healing. You're the reason this community is so incredible. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I wish I could speak all 100 languages from all 182 countries that watch this channel to just say thank you. And I think there is a video. Harriet, can you pop up the thank you video? There's a thank you video that I did like a year or two ago on thanking everybody. From all the countries that are here on our channel. It's amazing. So Harriet's going to pop up all those video links here, and then she's going to link them up below. And if you're watching a replay, please leave a comment and just say hi. I'll get to your comments as quickly as I possibly can, but join us here live if you can, and if you can't, that's okay, no problem. There's always going to be a replay, but 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, the chat box is usually right over here. Otherwise, leave a comment below. I really appreciate you guys being here, and if you have not already subscribed to this channel and click the little bell for notifications so that you know if I go live or like I'm posting something, please do so. And if you think someone might learn something from this video, please share, and please like this video by giving it a thumbs up, because it helps the YouTube algorithm to know that I'm putting out quality content, and it helps people find this video in search, and it really helps a lot. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So subscribe, like, share, and email Lisa. Ooh, let's really quickly bring that up. Email Lisa at CPTSD Foundation, right down here, Lisa at CPTSDfoundation.org, if you would like to be welcomed into a safe group and heal with other survivors just like you and just like me who have experienced complex trauma. We're living with CPTSD symptoms, but we're navigating life and we're still finding a way to enjoy life. So I look forward to meeting you guys and spending more time with you. And thanks so much for being here. I'll see you next Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Bye, everybody.